Broads Media.
Let's cut right to the chase. That press conference sucked, and it actually is aggravating that they waited so long for that. So you're telling me, after all the excuses that Howie Roseman made on why the length of time took how long, well, there was snow, and the season ended, and we were sad, and we saw that a lot of people were unhappy, so we gave them a day off, and then, well, the weekend we reassessed. Stop the crap. I don't buy a word that man says. And yeah, I'm realizing as I reflect that Howie Roseman is starting to go on my shit list. I think that man is a master manipulator. I think that man is unbelievable in regards to how toxic he makes that workplace. And there's clearly a correlation behind all the drama, all the disgustingness that happens behind the scenes, and what Howie Roseman does behind closed doors. I don't believe a word that they say. I don't believe that Nick Sirianni was the one to get rid of Brian Johnson. It was probably something along this line. Yo, Nick, you either fire his ass or you're walking out that door with him. So choose wisely. And Jeremy Fowler had an awesome interview on the John Kincaid Show, and he's basically telling the world that there are people who are currently on the staff who are very disgusted with how things are going, and yet you're supposed to demand Nick Sirianni to succeed. Not that he gets off the hook either, because damn it, you have a job, and that's to be a damn good offensive head coach. Not a I don't do anything and maybe I'll peek my head into the defensive meetings. Like, what is that crap? You are getting questioned by Tim McManus, rightfully so, on what you do as a head coach if you hire an OC that is now adding a whole new scheme when he comes to town, and a DC that is essentially a head coach of the defense. What is your job? And you say culture, yet your culture blows. And you say core values after already referencing that your offense went stale. Yo, Nick, your core values suck too. Your core values? What are you, teaching a bunch of fourth graders on how you're supposed to morally live? It is a disgrace that you think that works year in and year out. It may work for a little bit of time, but just like anything else, you have to adapt. You have a lot of guys that have been in that room for a long period of time. Sometimes that gets stale too. And I guess he's got an idea, because I started cracking up when he said, we might shuffle our core values a bit and then label them in a different order. Oh yeah, because the order, Nick, is what's going to change the overall message. Do you see why I have a problem? I think he's fundamentally flawed from a leader standpoint, and when that's what his duties are going to be moving forward, it's unbelievable. Now, they were late to the meeting, and I know that the Vic Fangio stuff started to get leaked in the middle of the press conference. Why? Why do you think that happened? Because Howie is a master manipulator who wanted that to go down when it did, so then it gets deflected. Everything that was stated today by Nick Sirianni, while we'll pick it apart, there is a portion of the fan base that starts to lean more on what does the Vic Fangio hire mean? What can they incorporate from a scheme? And that's also why I believe that it was planned to be late to this meeting. We're going to have one at 2:30? Okay, 2:30. But we're not actually going to step into that room until 3, because we know that about X% of the viewers will tune out because we're taking so long. So let's get less eyes, let's get less ears on what we're saying so it's not as hostile. Trust me, they're 5, 6, 7 steps ahead of this, and for some, they just take it for face value. They believe it word by word, but someone like me, I'm going down and I'm peeling that motherfucker back until I don't see anything anymore. And I'm just starting to really despise Howie Roseman and the way he's creating the leadership side of this. It's setting everyone up to fail. He did not fire Brian Johnson. Sirianni did not fire Brian Johnson, and he did not fire Sean Desai. And he is now put himself into a corner because Sirianni sucked when he did have an opportunity. I mean, he did over the last 3 years have a chance to show his worth, but when he failed miserably, now it goes to the people above because you're letting someone who's not competent run the asylum. How do you think this is going to go? It's unbelievable. So the Vic Fangio thing, Howie Roseman wanted to pretty much portray a vision that we want to get in front of all the trends, right? We want to be first in line because if you're last in line, you normally get the scraps. So they back up that statement with hiring Vic Fangio. Oh, yeah, because that's really new and creative. Oh, yeah. Talk about getting in front of the trends, right? And while I think that there's value, especially now with how broke this franchise is, I love the idea of a Ron Rivera. I love the idea of getting the actual inventor instead of a disciple. Well, he runs Vic Fangio's scheme. Well, he learned from Vic Fangio. Well, how about we actually go get Vic Fangio? And it's good that that's the case, and I get it, but I'm more looking at how things aren't adding up. If Howie claims I want someone who's been in the room for a long time, who we could really rely on from a veteran experience level, someone who potentially has been a head coach before, well, then it adds up, and there's a blueprint and an idea and a concept that are starting to align, right? All of that is starting to add up, and then what you're saying is matching what you're doing. The words and the actions are clearly making sense. But that's not the case here. You go back to an old retread, which I don't mind. And once again, it's really not about who the hire is. I actually don't mind the hire, although I was starting to maybe trickle down the potential of getting away from the Vic Fangio stuff and starting to get maybe like a wink move so you can apply some pressure, be a force, have some sort of identity as a defense, have some snarl from some positions, right? But, it's not like we'll get that at a linebacker. He was asked about that too. Oh, we got a lot of faith in Nakobe Dean. Come on, really? Really? A lot of faith in Nakobe Dean? What the hell is telling you that? I think Nakobe Dean is a fantastic human being, but he has shown me zero, nothing. Going back to Howie, though. All right, here's exactly what was said by Jeremy Fowler on The Fanatic, and I got to turn the page. I have that much to say that we're on multiple pages. Normally, I can label this clean in my notes, and I don't have to worry, and I can just get it all done. College ruled, okay? So we're taking a good amount of notes here. Ain't no wide ruled crap. This is the no-brainer college rule. Let me make sure I can get as much information on one page as possible. And I was just turning, writing, hand turning purple, the ink bleeding through the pages because I'm pressing so hard. That's how much I'm damaged while listening. But yeah, what was stated was there's weird vibes. The staff is not happy about how things went down, especially with Brian Johnson, and believes the staff changes were not coach driven. And you got to think, as much as I thought it was time to get rid of Doug Peterson when it was, I do believe that there's respect and power by going down with your guys. You don't want Mike Groh? Screw you. You don't want this guy? You don't want Press Taylor? Go to hell. I'm going to bat for my guys. While now, this new coaching staff clearly is side-eyeing Sirianni because he's a little shrimp. That's what he's letting Howie Roseman push him around. He's letting another shrimp beat down on the shrimp. Come on, man. What's that make you? Don't you have balls? Don't you have something? I mean, that's what I'd be thinking. I'm just saying. Now, someone like Vic Fangio, been around for a while. Some guys, like Ron Rivera, for example, if that was the case, even though it's clearly leaning Vic at this point, pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered. I'm just saying, like, Ron Rivera would never want to be, not never, but his ideas clearly is, let me take a step back. I've been the head coach for a while. I'm okay with DC. If you have someone like that, then it's different. But if you're trying to get an aspiring offensive coordinator, I'm not interested in Cliff. Okay, please, do not bring Cliff into here. No. Now, if we go to Houston and look at their quarterbacks coach, maybe a Jerrod Johnson, now things are starting to move a little bit. My needle, okay? Let's not get weird. My needle is moving because I'm excited about what he did with C.J. Stroud, and there's a lot of upside there. Are you willing to give him the keys, though, and say you have full throttle go? And that's a younger name with maybe a high ceiling, but an unknown in this circumstance, while there's DCs that have been around the block with a ton of experience being on the sidelines. I'm okay with defense going that route, and if you want to be innovative, you've obviously rather go younger compared to going with an old retread on the offensive side. But I don't like the tone of everything. It didn't sound like Nick Sirianni had a bunch of confidence in this one. Like, he didn't seem to have a hold on the room, to have a hold on the answers. The GM stepped in and said, let me get one. Probably because whatever they rehearsed, he realized, well, this is going off the walls. Probably because he got sidetracked so much, Sirianni that is, that eventually he realized 4 minutes into his response, he had to ask the reporter to follow up with the second half of the question because he had no idea where his own words took him. So he needed the question re-answered or re-asked so he can re-answer. And speaking of the word right, or using in front of words, he brought up this, that he needs to reprove himself. I despise that answer. You have to reprove yourself. That means there's doubt. Shaq Leonard said the same thing. I ain't worried about what others are saying. I don't care what certain fans are saying. I need to prove it to myself that I can still play. Yo, newsflash, you can't. So, Nick, I hope you don't take that same damn approach. I got to reprove myself. How about you walk in with some toughness knowing that you're great? Right? Like, stand on that. I'm good at what I do. I know the last 7 games were very disappointing, and I put that all on me. But I trust the power up top in the front office. I trust myself, and I know that I can get this back on track. I have full belief. And there's a big difference than if he goes, I got full belief, and I know. No. Say it with some toughness. Say it with some attitude, man. Like, say it like you believe it. And then you can actually get away with some of what you said because it's about how you say it and the delivery and be an NFL coach. It's really not that difficult. I don't believe a word he says. He backed himself into a corner where he's essentially a yes man, and now everybody knows it. The job is, if you are that, which, believe it or not, it happens a lot more in sports than we would like to admit, but if that is the case, you have to hide it. That's part of it. And now Howie, he should be getting a lot more criticism in this regard. If these coordinators suck and if they fail, this is on you for how you attack the head coach position. Now, what you have to do every single year is find an OC who's spectacular because Nick Sirianni isn't. You're bringing in a guy here to give you fresh new blood and a new scheme when things got stale. But isn't that what your job is as an offensive head coach? Aren't you supposed to come up with the new, fresh stuff? Because, well, you're going to be there for years in your mind, right? I'm going to be the head coach in the NFL for 10 years. Let me pretend for a second, Nick, that you knew that prior to you signing on the dotted lines with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, did you expect every year to walk in and not have to get flashy, not have to get new, not have to get creative? Of course not. Now, if you did, that's a problem. And maybe he did. And maybe that's why we're here. But anyone with some brain cells would recognize that things get stale. And you have to reinvent stuff. If you can't figure that out, then what do you do? See what I'm saying? Reprove. Or you know what you're capable of doing. Forget to reprove. Forget to prove. I hated that approach. It seems you're skeptical of yourself. And even if you open the door and it's cracked just a tiny percent of you not believing in yourself, that goes a long-ass way in a locker room of 52 men, whether you want to believe it or not. I'm telling you. You know what else is crazy? That people on the staff see dysfunction, and they may not even want to be there anymore, is something that Jeremy Fowler mentioned. And you know what? How annoying it must be to know that there's leaks flying out of this place left and right. You always have to have your back being looked at because someone's ready to stab you 24/7. And look, I'd be lying to you if I said I think the Eagles are the only place where it's like that, right? But I don't want to associate ourselves and apply what the Eagles are like to who the Cleveland Browns are when they can't get a win. I'm talking when they were through their downfall stuff, right? Like when you compare yourself to the league, well, they finished top 12, and that means they're better than these teams. I don't care if they are better than the Chargers. They fucking should be. I don't care if they're better than the Raiders. You fucking better be, right? Like, it doesn't matter to me. Can you legitimately compete with the Kansas City Chiefs? Can you legitimately compete with the Buffalo Bills? Can you legitimately compete with the Ravens? Can you legitimately compete with the 49ers? There's 5 or 6 teams that I package together, and where do you stand when getting matched up with them? And as long as you're constantly in the fight and seriously in the fight, then that's what I ask for. If you're better than the New York Giants, what do you want from me? What am I supposed to do with that data other than put it into a big ball and put it under my foot and crush it 10,000 times? Because you better be if you're not. And quite frankly, I don't know if you are as currently constructed. But if not, then serious overhaul better be in play. And I don't know if they're aware of that at all. But Howie Roseman, master manipulator with these leaks and these stories on Jalen Hurts, which I'm not knocking any reporter for writing stories. I know there was some Britton Covey drama. And then when something like that happens, there's all this talk about how bad Philadelphia media is. There's 75,000 stories. And when you look at the right reporters and the right people who cover the team, 97% of the right reporters do a phenomenal job. And if there happens to be 2 or 3%, that's just because it's impossible to hit 1,000, and sometimes things happen. And I didn't really follow this story. Trust me, the last thing on my mind today was what Britton Covey thought. But my point is that when there's leaks about the QBs in years past, it's coming from one man. It's coming from one man, and the nastiness and that gnarly stench that is there stems from the general manager, who I've been giving so much support to for so many years because there's a lot of good stuff that he does, and that's still true. That doesn't go anywhere. But if you're making the working environment so hostile every day when you go into the NovaCare complex, I'm not sure how you're supposed to succeed before we can even get to, can the coach coach? Can the quarterback? Can the OC do this? There are other boxes to check, and one of those boxes happens to be, what is the energy like? And if the culture is big for the football team, which Nick Sirianni claims it is, and rightfully so, it is. That's why they sucked last year, because they were not on the same page. But the same is true from a culture standpoint of the front office members, of the ownership. And, you know, that's an area that I always think Howie Roseman seemed to struggle with. And when it goes bad, it goes so bad. Like, it goes unfathomable bad. And it reaches a point that serious questions have to be asked. Not that I'm calling for his job, because I'm not calling for his job. I'm just saying. Now, this hat, as I look down at the screen, makes it look like I got a condom on my head. I'm rocking an Eagles beanie. Make fun of me if you want down below in the comments. You know what I'm saying? What you can't do, though, is make fun of me for how great HelloFresh is, because there's been people who listen to this program, fantastic, beautiful individuals who have reached out to me via Twitter, via Instagram DM. Broats, not only do you have such a great show, thank you very much, but HelloFresh is the greatest thing to ever touch my lips. All right? And I do some fun things with women in the bedroom. This is serious stuff. This is what's being mentioned to me. And I go down in the bedroom. This is the greatest stuff that's ever touched my life. Or best touched my lips in my life. And I do some things to my wife. Oh, hey, a little too much information. But I'll let the people know at HelloFresh. And right now, we have a new deal going with our friends over at HelloFresh where you get free breakfast for life. You heard that correctly. Go to HelloFresh.com/BrodesFree and use code BrodesFree, which is a brand new promo code for us. And what you get is free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while the subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/BrodesFree with code BrodesFree. So don't let recipe boredom strike because HelloFresh has more options than ever before. Dig into their biggest menu yet with over 45 dinner recipes to choose from weekly and even more market add-on items that suit any lifestyle. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and HelloFresh agrees. In fact, they're giving all subscribers free breakfast for life. That's HelloFresh.com/BrodesFree. Join the HelloFresh family down below. You will absolutely love every single second of it. All right, so this has been touched on as well. The other coaches around the league that oversee, that aren't involved with play calling on certain sides of the ball. Look at Baltimore. Yeah, no doubt. He also has something different about him from a leadership standpoint than Sirianni. I don't care if the head coach isn't as active from an offensive standpoint if he's an offensive guy. I prefer it. Because if you are a good organization, you will get poached and you will lose your coordinators. And then you're constantly trying to play that game of catch up and find that new sexy thing. Whereas if you're Kyle Shanahan or if you're Harbaugh, really, Kyle Shanahan's a way better example. I'm just saying from an offensive standpoint, you can lose coordinators and be okay. You can lose Eric Bieniemy if you're Andy Reid and be okay. Now, he's one of the most impressive minds that the league has ever seen, so it's hard to get to that level. But overall, that's why it's easier and better and way more sustainable if the guy who is in charge has all the ideas. But it's not impossible to thrive in other areas. But let me throw Mike Tomlin out there. And if Mike Tomlin was asked, because there are others surrounding you, Mike, what do you do as a head coach? I'm sure that he would tell you for a good 2 to 3 minute answer at a press conference on everything he does that would make you kind of make not a stank face, right? It's not like when Metro Boomin drops a beat and you give a stank face in your car and the subs are bumping. It's not to that level, but it's an acknowledgement, half smile and head nod that, okay, look, yes, there's juice. Yes, I understand now. I see it. I get it. I do. I might not agree because some people might not agree, but I get it. I see where they're coming from. I don't see where they're coming from. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. So my point is, if Tim McManus asked Mike Tomlin that question, what do you think the response would be? Oh my God, there would be so much more conviction in his answers. I miss the conviction because this guy doesn't have it. He's now trying to reprove himself. No. I want someone in there who knows. But because if you look at the 4 coaches that are left, I don't know what Dan Campbell is. This could be a miracle journey ride for the Detroit Lions, and then they go back to being just the standard Lions, or they go back to like a 500 team-ish that every couple of years milks their way into a playoff run, whatever. I have no idea. Time will tell on him. But the other coaches, they've been there. Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, and John Harbaugh. Because of that, were they afraid to keep turning the page because they want sustainability, or they want stability? They want someone in there and they're not constantly changing face over and over again. What would that be? like for Howie Roseman from a public perception point if now constantly we're looking back at all of his hires? This guy had how many hires? Well, why, right? And I keep hearing, well, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman have had so much success together since Lurie owned the team. And I've used that rebuttal a lot in my life. But I am now reassessing it. And when majority of that comes from, my point is, let's take a look at what has happened since Andy Reid left town. And that's not to pretend like what happened with Andy Reid doesn't deserve a lot of credit. It does. I'm actually begging for Howie to do more of that now. If Howie was willing to give up some of his power and not limit this franchise because he's scared to put someone in that has some pop and that has some credibility, you're actually lowering the bar because you're eliminating so many potential head coaching hires, especially in a head coach cycle that has some pretty damn impressive names, whether it's at the Michigan level, right, Jim Harbaugh, whether it's someone like Bill Belichick. There are some really appealing opportunities that you go, nope, I don't want to deal with that guy at all. You're just writing them off. That's unfair, and you're doing your team, your players, and your owner a disservice. I will give you a round of applause if you're willing to not necessarily take a step back, but, this is what irks me, this collaborative stuff. I want someone who's commanding. Forget the collaborative crap. I don't buy it. It's not a collaborative effort. And the problem is it's the selling, and it's all off base. No one's clearly understanding on who's doing what. The team didn't know when Brian Johnson was even calling plays. So if, and I wouldn't agree with it, but if Howie Roseman was to step out in front of a mic and go, all right, I'm done with all this BS. Let me tell you, let me rip the Band-Aid off and let me tell you right from the horse's mouth here, right? I'm in control. This is my show. Could you imagine? But I'm just saying, like, there's an understanding. The collaborative, well, how much is this guy? How much is that guy? Well, what is this guy doing? That guy doing? It's starting to get murky. All right, it's starting to look like the Schuylkill River when it turns brown. It ain't good. And if you had someone that at least was the face of it with real actual substance behind that, and there was truth to him being in control, it can go a long way for messaging, for buy-in factor from the players that are actually dressing up and putting the pads on in the room. And I think you sell your franchise and your fan base short because you're so unwilling to go to that well. I would give Howie Roseman praise if he did that, because I know he's so damn stubborn, and I think he could really help out the direction of the entire Eagles organization right now. But he's never going to do it again. I don't know if he's scarred because of what Lurie went through with Chip Kelly and pretty much pushing Howie Roseman to the closet and shutting the door and saying, you're not coming out of here until something miserable happens. And then, well, something miserable did happen, and yet here we are. So there's just so much change, so much turmoil. Every single time it goes south, there's ways for things to get ugly without it getting out of control, right? You make changes defensively. You make changes with your defensive coordinator. Miami getting rid of Vic Fangio, mutually parting ways, whatever that means, right? Like the Giants, for example, Dable and Wink, they had personality problems where it didn't really mesh. So let's go in a new direction. But while the Giants are struggling due to the fact they don't really have a quarterback, and then the quarterback they did buy into got hurt, and now you're Tyrod Taylor, Tommy DeVito, whatever his name is. Look, the Giants aren't in a good position by any means, but I'm just saying they're not asking the same questions we're asking about our head coach. Like, they believe in Brian Dable. They might have not have won a lot of games, but there's still belief in certain things in there. How come that we are way better? We have way more talent, especially on the offensive side, and you think that there's more pop because, well, the Philadelphia Eagles normally have a handle on things, yet we can't even figure it out at all, and it seems like our head coach is lost and clueless. Why are we here? You could be in a position where change is needed and change is demanded, yet you can still kind of understand certain pieces of your franchise. Whenever they fall, you question every little ounce. And it comes back to, because it's not set in stone on who has power and who's really doing things. It's all about manipulating the perception, which then You hate media, right? All those people that say, I hate Philadelphia media. I hate people who hate Howie Roseman then. Because Howie Roseman is why there has to be so much digging. Because instead of actually being honest and giving reasonable answers, and by no means is Danny Briere and Keith Jones on the level of Howie Roseman and things of that nature. But when Cutter Gauthier stuff happened, which was the Flyers dealing with a ton of public backlash, because why would you ever trade one of your biggest prospects who's supposed to change your franchise? Keith Jones went to the TV broadcast. The new ownership went on Snow the Goalie podcast, and Danny Briere had a press conference in the first and second intermission when playing a game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. My point is, you get out in front of it. You let the people know. We're just going to be honest. That's part of their MO. That's part of their beliefs is we're not going to sugarcoat anything. We're just going to be open, honest, and let's see how it goes. And I would love the Eagles to take some of that, even though they will never take any of that. So it's just me being more of a wishful thinker than anything else, and I looked down again and saw that there's a condom on my head that I forgot about. So, all right, we'll take calls, and we'll hear from you on just everything, and yeah, let's do it.
I would say full disclosure for everything with this press conference, because this team has left such a sour taste in our mouths, regardless of anything that Howie and Nick were going to say today. We all thought it was going to be garbage, regardless if it was the right thing to say, whether it was a smart thing to say. It was going to be pure garbage, because that's how much we, as a fan base, do not trust this team right now, and how much that collapse really just hurt us. But one thing that just really stands out to me, it sounds like they want to go back to the CEO type of thing with Nick Sirianni, how they were, when they went to the Super Bowl with Steichen and, Gannon running everything, and then Sirianni was just being the main boss there. But the one question that just really stood out to me and it makes me laugh, it just really sounded like, Nick, what is your job? And that just made me laugh. I laughed for probably 5 minutes straight, just because that's probably what we've all been saying since the collapse started. Like, Nick, what do you do? And then now it also sounds like that he was the one that made the decision to demote the size. So, not a good feeling.
I don't believe that, by the way.
And also, with Fangio being fired during this press conference, I wonder why their meeting was delayed, or this press conference was delayed. I swear to God, if they hire Fangio, I'm going to scream.
Well, I don't think Look, this was pre-planned. The delay was pre-planned. There's no way that they come out right at 3 o'clock, perfectly on the dot, after they announced 2:30 because they were finishing detail. No. What was being said was, hey, Shefty, I want you to tweet this out about 20 minutes into our press conference so it could blow the noise away from what we're saying, and then people will get intrigued by the potential hire. This thing was all premeditated, man. The Vic Fangio thing, it could be worse. It could definitely be worse. It's not the worst hire in the world. I don't hate it. I don't know if I'm like, yeah, but maybe it's more just because I'm so down on everything right now. It has nothing to do with Vic Fangio. You just have to do way more to get me out of this feeling that I'm in. But, yeah, I don't think that he fired Sean Desai at all. He's taking a bullet for the GM, which makes him look worse to his team because now he's an automatic yes man. He did not fire Sean Desai. There's no way he fired Sean Desai at all. And Tim McManus did an excellent job asking that question. What do you do, Nick? What do you do? Now, I didn't realize I went 30 minutes without taking calls, so I'm a bad guy. But I'll save these calls because guess what? We're going to be talking about the Birds again very soon, and I'll use a lot of these calls in the upcoming shows. All right, everybody, if you didn't leave a call, 856-442-9805, go ahead, and I'll snag those for sure, add them to the folder. But right now, I'll get the condom off my head. I'll wrap this show up. I greatly appreciate it, and we'll be talking very soon. I'll see you all in the next one.